All right, everybody, welcome to the stream tonight. Um, Not make the same mistake I made last time, where I spent 15 minutes talking and didn't show what was on the screen. So we'll get this figured out. There we go. That's out of the way. Everything looks good. Awesome. Okay. First of all, welcome to the stream tonight. Man, I just finished my presentation right before the stream. I've added all my images to it. Let's let you guys see preview of the slides if you're curious. You can go here. So most of what I spent today doing was working on these images. The content was all there, and my ideas are all there. And I'm not showing speaker notes or anything like that yet, but a lot of fun today just with the AI, creating the different characters that show up in the in the various slides. And I love the fact that this text is just so horrible. So yeah, and this one was actually kind of cool. When I generated this image, the image was like a really scary scene with a big scary warning sign, right? And so, I took it very seriously and gave me a scary warning and scary and warning. In fact, let's see if I go over here. But yeah, the other images that it generated were just as hilarious. And I don't want to get too distracted. Yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. TinyConf was tomorrow. Actually, let me get you guys that link. Where do I have that link? On Twitter for sure. Here we go. Gotta have it here in the note from. There's the schedule. And here is the link. Get that up on both Twitch and YouTube. But it starts at 7 a.m. Eastern, and then it goes for a while. If we go take a look at that link that I just put out there. If we look at the schedule. So it starts at 7 a.m. Eastern. This is 5 a.m. my time. So we'll see how good I am in getting out of bed. I usually don't get out of bed at 5 a.m. I'm going to try and make it for the beginning, but we'll see. Lars's talk looks really awesome. Then we got Daniel, and then we go into Paul Chessie, Paul and Joy, and they are. I'm looking forward to this one too. So this is 6 a.m. my time. Firebase hosting from Marcus. Marcus is one of the other organizers, so I'm looking forward to that. And then Sonu up next at 9 a.m. This is when I think I would be most likely to join, is after the 9 or after the break. I thought there was a break in here. Maybe there's not anymore. Yeah, Angular with Ionic from Ibrahim. Robin is going to be speaking about Spartan, which is awesome. And then we got Enea who joined us. So NG extension, and this is something I really want to learn. So very, very excited about that. And Dale, we were really interested in this when we were looking at the CFPs. So I'm curious about this talk. And then Azure functions are used all across enterprises. So this one from Ryan looked really cool. Then David, get ready to go zoneless. I love going zoneless, so that's awesome. And then right after lunch, we've got Rainer kicking things off. And then we've got Alfredo. Yeah, and then we've got micro front ends from Igor. And then Thomas Fleece. And then I'm at 2:30. I thought I was at 12:30. Maybe I've been moved. I don't know. No, I've always been here. Never mind. I've just been getting things wrong. So at 2:30, this is my talk that I just showed the slides for. That means I've got a whole 6 hours to be tweaking stuff. And if you guys, that's the crazy thing about like conference speaking. You have your talks in place, and like I wasn't going to go and add all those images. I had other just like generic stock images, and today I was like, you know what, it'd be really cool if we just added some of that. And oh, this is all Eastern time, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So these times are all Eastern time, and that's where I got confused. So I am speaking at 2:30 Eastern, but it's 12:30 my time. And then testing signals with component testing from Jordan Powell, be awesome. And Kita, this is going to be amazing too. And then Chow, I can't, yeah. Angular 3 is amazing. I really want to use it, but I haven't yet. And then Eduardo. And then Adi is finishing things off. No, actually, Logan is finishing things off, and then the closing remarks. So it's 12 hours of just nonstop Angular talks. So highly recommend you guys join us tomorrow. Really excited about it. But let's go ahead and make some progress here. So right now, this application is kind of silly, doesn't really do a whole lot. The other thing that I'm kind of frustrated with, and maybe we'll start by fixing that, is the fact that these two are right on top of each other. I don't know why. So let's go figure that out first. So if I go here, and let's just inspect this, right? And let's inspect this item here. So this form is right up against. So really it's this component right up against the other component. And I tried to do the forms, but really what we want is, we could just make this form. This is a flex container right here. No, it's not. We can make this form flex and then give it a gap of 2. And that should fix our issue that we've got going on right here. So let's do that. And like I said, I was working on stuff right up until the last minute here. I actually lost track of time, and that's why I was a little bit late on getting started today. So let's go ahead and pop open Modular State, and in our app component here, we've got our form. And this form, right now, we could just do class equals, and we could do flex column and gap of 2. And if we do that, that should create space between our 2 components that we're adding to the screen, which should fix our issue of them sitting right on top of each other. And it did. That gap. So we've got a different gap here. Interesting. So if we inspect this form, this form is using gap 4, and this form is using gap 2. We should fix that too. So first thing we can do is we can just say, hey, our form is gap 4. That will fix part of it. And then the details component, here we're using gap 2 also, and we can make that gap 4. That's going to fix our styling as soon as that, yeah. So now it all looks better, and things aren't right on top of each other. And we can see the VIN changing here. So this is all nice, but it doesn't give us a whole lot, right? It's just a generic form that everybody's seen everywhere. So how do we prove that, you know, this is all put together with, you know, with Modular State outside of looking at the code? And I have a couple of ideas. The first thing I want to do is let's extract this out into its own component, and we'll add some routing. So that's the first thing I want to do. Let's go ahead and close all of our tabs. Let's go to our app.component. And I believe we have an app.routes also. App.routes. Yeah, so we haven't added any routes yet, but we do have the ability to display routes. So let's first get this into a component, and then once it's in a component, we can start doing our router stuff. And I have a couple of ideas for different ways we can use the router. So yeah, and it's going to be super simple to do this, right? All we need to do is grab this form right here. Boom. And there we go. We now have, we're now ready for a component. I watched this amazing video from Eunice on how to do, it was like how to do dynamic libraries in NX, and I want to explore that so badly, but I don't want to get distracted today. We've got the info and the details, and we've got the helper. Let's do, you know what? So these are our components that make things up. We've got a shared UI library. Let's do a new folder, a new directory. And we'll call this combined. In our combined directory, we're going to add we're going to use NX to generate a new component. So we'll do that. And our component that we want to generate, oh, you know what? I'm seeing that I've got plugins to upgrade. Copilot. It's the other one that wants to be upgraded. JSON to TS. I'm not going to bother with that today. So this one will just be, we'll call this our single form component. And it should live so saying workspace root libs combined. So here we can just say, hey, we want this to go into libs combined. And we can say single dash form. It doesn't like that because combined does not exist under any project roots. That's okay. We'll keep going and see if we can get this to work. It will be standalone. Change detection is on push. Display block, no. Inline template, yes. No modules. Libs combined single form does not exist under any project root. Oh, I'm generating a component here. I need to generate the library first, and then I can generate a component. That's what it's telling me. I'm way ahead of myself. So we want to generate a library. Let's go ahead and do that. And the name of the library is going to be single dash component. It's not going to be buildable. It's going to be placing this in libs combined single component source lib single component. That's fine. I'm not going to complain about that. We'll worry about lazy loading here in a second. But publishable, no. Routing, no. We'll add that ourselves. No module spec, no tailwind, change detection on push. Compilation mode, we don't care. If I do flat, it's going to put the single component in the root. So it's not going, and I actually like this. And then if we add any other components, they can go, they can be added inside of that lib directory. Import path, well, actually, oh yeah, that's fine. Is this stuff, yeah, it's all in the source, we're all good. So the import path is going to be at, and this is modular dash state slash, and this will be calling this one single dot component. And so that's fine. Single component dot component doesn't sound good. So we're going to just call this combined. And that is okay. So the import will be from modular slash state slash or modular state slash combined is the import path. No inline styles, inline templates for sure. Linter's fine. Prefix is always mod state as provided. Selector, we'll let it generate that. Simple name, we don't care. Skip module, skip selector, skip tests because we're going to be using component tests. Standalone strict style is CSS tags. Is going to be library, and this will be combined. Or I don't know. We'll figure something out. We'll clean that up here after I get back from Australia, really. And so now we've got a place to put our component. So, well, it's actually going to generate our component for us as part of this library, which is great. So we can close this. Close this, and then let's go find our library. So in our libs, in combined, we now have all of this. So the other thing we want to do is just make sure that we commit this. So we modified app component. We won't do that one yet, but we'll stage this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Test setup. Yep. Vehicle details. And TS config base was changed also. So these two we'll do here in a second. So we can just say, hey, we added combined component. So great. There we go. And we can push that. So go ahead and put push. This is us fixing styles, and I believe yeah, so here fixing styles. Great. And then the next thing we need to do is, before I lose it from my paste buffer, is we need to go to the combined component, and inside of here in our lib, in here, we can just paste this into our template. So there's our form. And now we need to import the vehicle info component and vehicle details component. And we're going to keep these alphabetized. Vehicle details component. So there we go. Now we've got them both in place. This should all work, but we don't have anything happening here. The reason for that is we don't have our router outlet in place. So let's add our router outlet. And we can take this out of the place, or out of here, and we can add our router outlet. There we go. And that should work. And so now if we go take a look, you know, we've basically got our state and nothing there. So let's fix that. So in our app routes, we just want to add let's see, isn't it path. So our default path, load component, and And no, it's not app component. We want to import we want to import at not man modular state combined. That's going to load that, and then we want m.combined component. So there we go. That will load everything up, and we should be back into the state that we were before. Approot. We not on the base route? We are on the base route, right? Yeah, we are. Let me take a look at my console. There we go. Path cannot start with a slash. That's right. And so if I do that, I need to add path match. And it should be a full match. And then the last thing we want to do is also add just a handler for anything we don't know how to match. And we're just going to redirect to that. So there we go. And now we're where we need to be. So we've got all of our stuff in place, you know, with our trim and all of that. So we're in a good place, and everything looks the way it should. Let's get a couple more things in place just to show this off, right? So a couple of things we can do is, well, first of all, let's go ahead and commit some stuff, right? So here we can stage this, and we can stage this. We're not using the vehicle info component anymore, or the vehicle details component. So that's why this is all being cleaned up. We are providing the tokens. So we've got this all cleaned up. Yep. So moved form to own component. So there we go. We stage that and we push it. And then we added default routes. So there we go. Stage that, and then we push, and we're good. Hey, schizophrenic web developer, is Angular better than React? Oh my, you are trying to start you get me in trouble with questions like that. Is Angular better than React? In what context? I'm gonna put this back on you, right? In what context is Angular better? Because I will tell you, in certain contexts, Angular absolutely is better than React. In other contexts, React is absolutely better than Angular. So in true senior developer fashion, I am saying basically to you, it depends, right? So yeah, in what context are you asking, is Angular better than React? And we're ignoring Quick and Vue and a couple other frameworks, right? If we're talking in like just sheer size of developer volume and finding developers, React wins hands down, right? There are tons of people out there who know React, who work with React, who find React easy. React is by far the largest framework out there. And so, yeah, React wins hands down, right? If we scope it to that context. If we go into like big enterprise level apps, Angular tends to win there. So when you're going into like big fintech, you'll find Angular. When you're going into like the airline industries, you're going to find Angular. There are a lot of places where Angular tends to show up, and it typically winds up being in bigger enterprise level organizations. So that's my answer. Depending on what you're trying to do, React will win, and in other circumstances, Angular will win. What is my preference? I tend to reach for Angular, mainly because that's what I understand. I've built things in React before, but and I could learn React if I had to for a job, but it's not the way I think, and it's not something that I'm up to date on or comfortable with. So if you're asking me, in my personal opinion, Angular is easier and better for me. So hopefully that answers your question. Schizophrenic web developer, I like your name, by the way. So yeah, questions like that get you clipped, and then people take you out of context, and suddenly you show up somewhere saying something that whatever it is, right? But thank you for the question. I'm happy to answer, but I'm always going to be careful about my answers, just because, one, I have my own biases. So asking me as a developer who works in Angular daily and who is an Angular GDE and who has a lot of friends in the Angular community, streams Angular, writes articles about Angular. Of course, I'm going to tell you Angular is better, right? But those reasons are very much mine, and they're very much showing my biases. Objectively, if we look at like the industry and stuff, there are definitely places where we can look at numbers and objectively pick one over the other when we scope it to certain contexts. But when it comes down to it, and maybe you're asking this question in good faith, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm making fun of the question. When it comes down to it, when picking a framework, the big frameworks are largely, I don't want to say equivalent, because that's going to get me in trouble, because people will be like, oh no, React does this, right? Or Angular does this, or Vue does this, or Quick does this, right? The big frameworks are largely capable of doing whatever you want to do. So that's how I will get around saying equivalent, right? They're largely capable of accomplishing the task that you want to do. They're going to do it differently, right? And a lot of times it comes down to kind of preferences, very similar to like vehicles, right? So some people prefer to drive compact cars, right? Some people prefer to drive giant pickup trucks. Some people prefer automatic engines. Some people prefer to drive manual transmissions, right? It's largely the same way with web frameworks. When you buy a vehicle today, most vehicles are going to behave and act the same and have fairly similar reliability, right? And again, when I say that, I'm opening myself up to being flamed, right? Because you've got like you've got the Japanese versus domestic, right? You've got the Ford, Dodge, and Chevy, right? They all hate each other, and they've all got different names. And so, people will tell you that Ford stands for fix or repair daily, right? But I happen to have a soft spot in my heart for Ford vehicles because my grandfather worked for Ford, and we always had Ford vehicles. And as far as I'm concerned, Ford vehicles are awesome. Do I have Ford vehicles at my home? No. My daughter drives a Jeep. My wife and I drive Hyundai, right? But it's because the vehicles that we drive make us comfortable, right? And my daughter and my wife, they both like larger vehicles. Me, I'm fine with a car, right? And so that's a long way of saying it's the same way mostly for modern frameworks, right? Modern frameworks are probably going to get you to the same place. The ease and comfort of what you're doing wildly varies depending on the task you're trying to accomplish, right? Would I take my car, my little Hyundai Sonata, up into the mountains? Probably not. It's not a good idea, right? Would I take my daughter's Jeep? Absolutely. And we would have a lot of fun doing it, right? But the Jeep is very much built for the mountains. My Sonata is not. And again, very similar to frameworks, right? Some frameworks do some things very, very well, and other things they struggle at, right? That Jeep, my Sonata is a hybrid. When it comes to paying for gas, I pay a lot less than my daughter does, right? So again, some things are done very, very well, and vehicles of certain types excel at certain things. Same thing with frameworks, right? They'll all get you to the same place. How you get there really depends on where you're going, and some frameworks may lend themselves better to what you're doing than others, right? But it's highly dependent, and really, when it comes down to it, look at the developers you're trying to hire. Can you get those developers? Are they going to build what you want to build? Is the framework going to make it easy for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish, right? And then down the road, when you're picking a framework, you want to make sure that the framework you pick isn't going to incur a lot more cost. So there you go. Way more than I intended to say on this, but hopefully that's a good answer. Let me know if you want me to say more. I'm always happy to answer questions. Anyway, so we've built our router and we've got our routing stuff in place. I want to make some changes here. And mainly, I just want to add, did I commit this stuff? I did. Okay. So I want to add basically a left side nav. And in that nav, we'll just add links to different routes. And then, so we're basically going to create, we're going to create a grid. That's probably going to be the best way to do this. So we'll use a grid. That grid will have a left side, it'll have a content area, and then at the bottom, so if we look at our form right now, there will be a left side nav over here. This stuff will be the content of our form, and then this right here will display at the bottom, so that we can see it changing as we go through the different things. And then we'll add different kinds of forms, right? So let's do that. And the other thing, so today we're not going to be making a whole bunch of changes, but one of the things, like when we talk modular, right? One of the things that we should be looking at is, we don't want to, we want to make our stuff responsive, but we want to be looking at container queries instead of, instead of breakpoints, right? And our container queries will allow us to do some cool stuff based on the container that we are put inside of. And that's something that will come after. So I guess one of the things I didn't take care of tomorrow is TinyConf. We'll be streaming Angular content for 12 hours on tomorrow. Saturday, I fly out to Australia, and I don't land until, well, I'm not going to stream while I'm in Australia. One, I'm not going to try and stream from a hotel room because I can't even imagine what that would be like, just internet wise, but logistically and stuff like that. So I won't be streaming Sunday, Monday, or Thursday of next week. And then the Sunday after, I get back from Australia that Saturday before, before that Sunday. I'm not sure what kind of jet lag or recovery I'm going to need. So I will be letting everybody know that Saturday night, if I'll be streaming in the morning. But it might be Monday night before I'm back to streaming. Really depends on, can I sleep on the plane? How jet lagged am I? I'm not really sure what the implications are of essentially flip-flopping my day-night schedule for a week and then flopping it back afterwards. And there's a lot of other crazy stuff, like traveling from the US to Australia. We're going from summer to winter. So outside it, I think it's like, I don't know. I can probably look down here, right? Oh, I turned all that off. I think it's like 98 outside, which like Celsius wise, what does that wind up being? Subtract 32 puts us, 66. Basically, it's like 33-ish Celsius, I think, is what it's like outside. So it's pretty warm, and then going into half that temperature or less, in Australia, should be interesting. So we'll see how quickly I adjust to the cold, and then if that makes it difficult to adjust to the heat, or if I adjust to the heat from the cold better, and if I'm frozen, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that's the housekeeping stuff, right? Let's get back into designing this. And one of the things that I like to do when I do grids is CSS grid generators, right? And this layout, it is, I think, my favorite. Yes, it is. So let me get this link for you guys, just in case you're curious. When I do CSS grid, I actually find this easier for me to generate, because I don't know, it just is for me, right? My brain works that way. We are going to do a 3x3 grid, and the reason for that is if we go take a look at our layout, I want to leave this right here still along the top. I want to have this be the content area, and then this be kind of a display area. So we're going to use that grid to generate something similar, right? So at the top, we don't want a fraction. In fact, we want to go, we're going to go pure pixels here, and we're going to say that we want the top to be like 150 pixels. Start with, and I'm looking at columns here. This is wrong. It's still going to be pixels, but we want the top to be, or we want this to be like 200 pixels. No, we don't want that. We actually want this to be in, we can do it in EM, right? And we can do it in, we can say, maybe we'll do like 20 EM. Is that too big? maybe, I don't know. We can look at maybe something like 15. That's good enough for now. And then the content here, actually, we don't need a 3x3. This is really only going to be, it's really only going to be a 3x2. So this will be our left side nav. And this will be basically our content area. And in the future, we can show how we can use CSS Grid to shrink this area here. So the top, we're also going to go to this one. We can go and we can say, hey, this is going to be like 6 EM. That should be enough. And then the bottom, we will also go to pure EM. And the bottom, we will say this is 10 EM. And so now we've got our left side nav. So this is going to be left nav. We'll save this. And here, this area here will be, this will be the description. We'll call this our vehicle description. Boom, so we've saved that. And then down here, this is, we're gonna call this our details. Yeah, we can call this our details, and that's fine. And then this is our content, right? And we'll probably adjust this, but we're at least in a good place right now to build this. And it's giving us, you know, we've got the HTML that we'll use for this. And then it's given us all of our CSS, and it's using grid template areas. We can actually change that if we want. Right. Oh, it's always just going to use grid areas. And that's fine. I really don't care because like the slash stuff we could use, and there are some cool tricks that we could use with the slash stuff, but this is really simple. We're not using an implicit grid. Interesting. I thought there was a way to turn off the grid template areas. I don't actually even really care because I'm fine with the template areas. The container will, like, we can take this stuff out. We can add a lot of the container stuff to the CSS classes for the app itself. But let's go ahead and copy this over. Let's go to our app component. And inside of here, let's go ahead and add this back in. Boom. We don't need the container like I said. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. And so the left nav, we will add stuff into. For the description, we're going to move this into our description. That's going to live there. Our details is where our router is going to live. And then this bottom container is where this pre is going to live. And then we can get rid of this container class. And so that is all there. Oh, I've actually got these reversed. The details goes here and the content goes here. And this is the cool thing about grid, because we can display these things in any order we want. But because of the CSS from the grid, we can, we can make things lay out the way we want them to. So the next thing to do is just come over here, and we're going to grab our CSS, and we're going to go here to our CSS. You can get rid of that because that didn't do what we thought it did. And we've got content area, details area, vehicle description, and left nav. And we can see that, with the grid template areas, it's easy to see that we're on a 2x2. So we've got our columns and our rows and our gap. And maybe we would add a gap here. I don't know. But we can get all of this stuff into, well, like one of the things we could do right away is we could just say, hey, this is our host stuff. And then we would be working right away. So if we go take a look here, we'll see that now we've got our host. And things are appropriately happening the way we want them to. The nice thing about this is now we can come back to our app component, and we can also add some host bindings. So we can add class, and we can just say, hey, we want a padding of 2 around everything, right? And that's going to give us, we've got padding here and around the top, so things aren't going to go right up against the edge. We probably want to make that a padding of 4. So let's go padding 4. So there we go. Now we're not right up against the edge. Our left side nav doesn't look that good because, there's nothing in it, but that's okay. We'll get that fixed here soon. But here, we've got all of our stuff in place. One thing that we didn't do is we didn't throw an overflow on this. So, and we can do that really easily in our CSS, right? So on our details, we can say that we want an overflow of auto. And that should, I added it to the details. That's not where we want it. Well, we wanted it on the details, but we also wanted it on the content. Overflow auto. Boom. And we don't have a max height on this. So what we can do is we can say, hey, height is 0 and max height is 100%. And that didn't do what I wanted it to do. So let's take the height of 0 off. And sometimes, see, I don't, this is where, so if we inspect this, right, and we want specifically our content here. So I think if we do contain contents, nope. If I just do height 100%, that might do it. It doesn't. And I think the reason for this, well, I know the reason for this. This doesn't mean anything. These don't mean anything because the component itself doesn't have a max height. And so like on the body, we don't have, so if we do, height 100% here, and then on the app root, we also need to do height 100%. And that should, boom. My grid is added there. I think we also want a max height on this, right? Max height 100%. Do we need the height 100% on the HTML? There we go. So, we've now constrained ourselves to this height, which is fine for now. And now we've got, basically our 2-column layout. Or not 2-column, but we've got, our grid is now constrained to a max of 100%. So to fix this, we go into our styles.css. Styles.css. And inside of here, we can just say, hey, HTML and body. And we can just say height 100%, right? And then the next thing we want to do is we can go into our our app component here. And we'll do it on the class itself, but we can say max height 100, right? Or max height full, I think is what it is, right? I always forget the Tailwind classes. But now if we refresh this, we'll see that we've still got that. And if we look, like our HTML, why is that not at 100? Our body is at 100, which is fine. HTML, it must not be picking it up, but our body's at 100 height, which means that our app root is also at a max height of 100%. And so we're not going to overflow, which is where we want to be. So, we've got our stuff in place, and we're in a good place. Something we could do is on this description, we could also say class equals text dash primary. Give it a little bit of interest as we're looking at it. So there we go. So we now got that in place. Another thing we could do is, well, let's commit this right now, right? So got that. Got that. We've got this, and so we can just say that, hey, we added grid layout to application, and that's going to constrain everything to that layout. And in the future, we can look at, like, how would we minimize this? How would we allow this to shrink? How can we animate that, right? so that we can maximize the amount of area that we have for our users, and minimize the area that we've got here, and potentially drag and drop and resize panels if we wanted to. So that's something we could take a look at in the future. At this point, it would be nice to just get the home over here on the side. So we'll add that in. So we'll add our home link into our left nav. So we can just do a, and we can just say, yeah, router link equals slash, and we can just say home. So for the router link to work, we need to import the router link into our component. So we got our router outlet. We also need our router link. There we go. Go ahead and import that. We're going to need to clean up this component. Right now we're good. So now if we go take a look, now we've got our home. And it's a link. And when we click on it, it's going to take us to the root. Well, let's go take a look at some styling stuff. Well, actually, let's go ahead and commit that to. Add home link to side nav. There we go. We will push all of this. And we're in a good place. There's just a couple of things I want to get done. So please stop me, you guys, if you have any questions, or you want to just, if you want to, ask about what's going on or anything like that, feel free to, slow me down. The stuff that I need for tomorrow is already done. So, all right. Where were we going? We were going to go and take a look at Daisy UI. That's what we're using. And in Daisy UI, we want to go take a look at our components. That is not where I want to go. Let's instead go to the docs. Well, first of all, I want to look at pre-tags. So, we've got avatars. That's not what I want. They do have some stuff about typography in here, I saw. Yeah, layout and typography. So, you should officially use the Tailwind CSS typography plugin. And I agree, I should add this. It will allow me to take out a whole bunch of stuff. And it gives us some nice things like, pros and things like that. I think this is what would add like the pre-tags too, because pros pre-utility matches pre-tags. But to do this, all we really need to do is we just install this plugin. Let's go ahead and do that. So we'll go ahead and stop. We'll go ahead and install that using pnpm. And then the only other thing we need to do is just add it to the plugins. So we will add it along with Daisy UI. So our Tailwind config inside of here in our plugins, we just add this. And it doesn't recognize it yet because I don't think that it is there. Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot to mess with my antivirus, so it was scanning all of that stuff, and that's fine. The other thing we want to do is just so I'll worry about updating that later. So this should work now. In fact, we don't even need this. We can go here and just do a straight require here. That will be fine. So there we go. And so now if we go back and we serve our stuff, now it should build. We should get the topography stuff. The other thing that this allows us to do is now we can just comment this out. But we don't even need it. So once this serves, and it's already built and served, so now we can go and take a look at our modular state, and now we're back to where we were before. The things the way they look. I thought there was, and maybe not searching for the right thing. We go take a look at Daisy. So here, if I search for code, there we go. So code mockup. Like you can add this kind of stuff, right? So you do just mockup dash code. And here, like you could do, but I think if we just do mockup dash code on our pre-tags, so in our app components, on our pre-tag here, so we can do class equals mockup code. And there may be a reason I don't do this, because but if we go take a look, oh yeah, that's fine. For now, is that really fine? Is that really what I want? I like the code block. Mockup code gives me that. That gives me that. See, I don't want these at the top. Oh, well. One of the things we can do here is we can use our gap. That's in the CSS. So we can just say, at apply, and here we can do gap -4. I think it's X4 and gap dash. No, we don't even want the X. We want the Y. And we don't need the gap here anymore. And let's remove this below everything else. and separate it just a little bit to give us, an idea of what's going on. And that should make it so that everything's not on top of each other. Yeah. So there we go. So our code now has a background of some sort, right? And we're here. So the last thing we want to do is just go take a look at Daisy UI. And inside of here, we want to look at links. And so we just add a class of link. And it's just colors. And then a link cover. So I used to love this effect, but this effect is not very, it's not very good for accessibility. So we're definitely not going to do that. I think I'm just going to do simple link. So in the left, or in the app components, actually, what we could do is here in the the app component.css, we can say, hey, in the left nav, if you're a descendant child, we're just going to apply link. And maybe we'll do link dash, secondary, maybe. See what that does for us. So now if we go back to our state, our links are pink. I don't care. I do care. Oh, why is my H3 or my H1 text primary H1 inspect, or no, we want to go to Daisy, here. Let's go back to our layout and typography, and so we did require Daisy afterwards. Wait, this is saying that I should see my H1s looking like this. In 2, 3, 4. But it's definitely not, right? I mean, we take a look at this, inspect this. This is an H1. Got a text primary class on it. And let's look at the typography stuff. So Tailwind typography there. We installed it. I can use the pros classes. So where is my H1? Hmm. You can create your own color theme by adding topography section to your Tailwind config. Great. Themes. The default styles. Font size is a rem of 14. These are JS files, so I'm going to compile them down to CSS. EM. Where's my H1? So my font size is 3014. This is all nested inside of small base. Let's take a look at Tailwind Play. I think I have to add topography somewhere. Highlight JS or Prism, yeah. On any block of vanilla HTML, turn it into a well-formatted document. And so I remember, like, I think what we did, we can just throw like the pros tag here, I think, and this should fix our stuff. Yeah, but now we've got problems because so our width is there, our uproot. Why doesn't this have so this now that we've added the pros, things are different sizes. And so now we also have to do width full and max width full. And that should fix that issue that we're seeing there. Okay. Width full. Oh, it's W full, not width. W dash full and max dash W dash full. That should fix it. Yeah. And now we're back to where we were before. Okay. But now our top is way too big. So we go take a look at this grid. We're way too big at the top. So we could definitely shrink down. The other thing we could do is place items center. So if we go into our app component.css and we look at the top, vehicle description, our grid area is that. So our rows is now at 6 EM. We don't need that. We probably only need like 4 EM. And our template, we could probably take this down to 10 EM at this point. Yeah, so now we've got a bit more space, just in general. That's fine. The other thing we can do is in our vehicle description, we can do place items center, and that should inspect this. And then place we want justify items center, right? Is that not it? Justify content center, right? No. Oh, these don't make sense because if we do display grid, then suddenly it makes sense. And the other thing is like this H1, we look at it, has this massive margin on the bottom of it. And where does that come from? Yeah. So that's coming from the pro stuff. So we can do place item center, justify content center. And then the other thing we want to do is just make this display grid. And then the other thing we can do is say, hey, if you're an H1, we're going to go apply. Well, actually, we can just say margin dash bottom is a 0. So the H1 that sits inside of my vehicle description, we're just taking that margin off of it. And we refresh and inspect this. This H1 no longer has a margin on it. Doesn't like Oh, I did display. Grid. There we go. So sorry about that. So display grid. Save that. And now we can turn off our grid stuff and we're in an okay place. So that was a long way to get to where we want to be next. Some things that we can validate here is that, like, if I do 2025 and that updates, forward, that updates. So we're in a good place here. But let's show just how modular our state is across these modular components, right? Can we do different? And absolutely we can. What if we wanted to do like a wizard-based navigation? So let's go ahead and do that. One thing I'm curious about just right now, if let's do exec build modular state. I really want to just take a look at, what are our lazy packages? What are our main packages? And one thing that might be interesting to take a look at is, so we don't have that many lazy packages. So there's our main chunk, and it's 81K. And then we've got a couple other chunks that are small. And then we've got some really tiny lazy loaded chunks, but so if we do that with stats-json, I'm curious what is in each bundle. And we can take a look at this. So there we go. We generated the stats.json. So now we can go to dist. If we look in here, we can go to apps and modular state. And inside of here, if we look, there's our stats.json, and we can do npx. We can do pnpm exec, and it's not the Webpack bundle analyzer, it's the build, I believe. Build bundle analyzer. That's not it. Great. So let's go take, that's not what I want. ES build bundle analyzer. Bundle size analyzer. No, I don't want to upload this. ES build visualizer. That's the one we want. Actually, I don't care about uploading this. So can I, if I just do like a start dot here, can I just drag this into the browser here? Okay, there we go. So this is built by ESBuild. And we've got quite a bit here. So a lot of it's coming from node modules, some from apps, some from like very little from libs. And if we look at our tree map chart here, so we've got this massive chunk So Angular core is 107K. That's fine. RxJS winds up being 17K. Angular common. So this 134K chunk that we have, if we go take a look at the chunks that were built, so this chunk right here is Angular. So Angular core and all of that, is what comes along. Primitives down here. This is our signals actually. So signals are actually pretty small. So then we've got our main bundle, and in our main bundle we've got Angular common. We've got our router, and that's fine. And then we've got our platform browser. And here from apps, we're bringing in the app component. That is fine. We would expect that to be part of the main. So our main bundle is big. Styles is coming from styles.scs or styles.css. We could probably do something to minify that or make it smaller. But this chunk right here is the forms. Wait, why do I have Angular forms? Does it not tell me what references Angular forms? Angular common? So this chunk, this 29K chunk by itself is the Angular forms. So if we look at this build, we know this is Angular, we know this is mostly Angular, and this is Angular forms. But now we've got two other chunks, QS, this, and QEA. QS, so this chunk is a vehicle details, but it's not being lazy loaded. It's just a chunk on its own. And then the other one is the vehicle info, but the app component .css is being lazy loaded. Is that really? And this chunk here, wait. No, so this chunk right here, we said this was Angular. And then we've got two smaller chunks, this one and this one, QS and QEAP. So this one is our vehicle details, and this one is our vehicle info, and they're being loaded immediately. The only stuff that's being lazy loaded is this one right here, that 182 bytes, and this. I can't even click on them to make them grow. Like, I don't know what's in these chunks, but what could be vehicle details component? Because we shouldn't be. Oh, it's the tokens. This is what I was talking about before. So these tokens are actually causing, and this with vehicle details. So if we look here, this chunk can't be lazy loaded because it's being referenced by I wish this was better. So like this is all that should be loaded immediately is the model and the store feature. But because, oh, there we go. File is included in the bundle because contains this import, and this import contains the vehicle details. And the vehicle details contains the store feature. So here, if we go up a level, this component is main.ts references app component. App component references vehicle details. And the index contains the component itself. And so we can fix this. And this is something to take a look at later. I'm getting distracted here. Let's get back on target. Very interesting. We can clean up our we can clean up, what do we want to say, our bundles here in a little bit. But this is the kind of stuff that you should be looking at to make sure that your bundles stay small, because you don't want to be serving like massive bundle sizes. And you may not notice your bundle sizes unless you go in and you build it, with stats.json or something like that. So here we go. And even here, like, it doesn't look like these bundles are that big, but it's because when you run the server, it generates the bundles. It does kind of like an just-in-time delivery of your bundles, so it builds the bundles when you need them. But it's not bundling everything up. It's just adding references to the actual file system. And it's also using Vite, which does bundling slightly differently than ESBuild. So those are all things to be aware of. That when you're serving from just your server, your bundle sizes will be different. So you should always go in and take a look at your bundle sizes and figure out, why are they the way they are? Especially because, we, in our combined component, we're lazy loading these, right? So they should be, they shouldn't be loaded until this modular state is here. And it all comes down to the fact that we are referencing something in our app components that is referenced in our state, right? In the index file. And so we need to fix this stuff here. That's the real issue, is any state that we want to bring in should exist in its own route, and then anything else should be outside of that, and that would help us shrink down our form sizes. The other thing is, if we look here, our router link and our router outlet. And this is where we're referring to our forms module. We don't actually need it here anymore. We're using common module here. We don't need common module here. We can actually just refer to our forms module here. That's going to fix that issue. So we cleaned up some, and these are the kinds of things that you've got to be cognizant of, because your bundle sizes can grow. And it might be because you've imported the entire common module, or you've left a form module in an import somewhere that you're not using anymore, or things like that. But anyway, let's go back into our combined library, and let's create a new combined library. So we're going to use NX to do that. And this one, we will call it our wizard. So we're going to generate a library. And this will be our wizard style, because it's going to allow us to show something else, right? And I've got 20 minutes. can I generate a library in 20 minutes? And this is the benefit of highly modular stuff, right? Like in 20 minutes, I might worry about this any other way, but I think we might be able to. So this is our wizard library. Our root is workspace libs. It's not lazy loaded, not publishable. We'll add a router configuration, right? So here, if I do that, spec, no, we don't want a router configuration here. We're gonna have to just add it manually, I think. Show all options. Don't want that. On push, compilation mode, flat, import path. This will just be at modular -state/wizard. Inline my templates, please. That's fine. The prefix will be at, or no, it'll be mod-state. As provided selector, we'll let it generate. And again, we're going to skip tests because we're gonna write component tests. Standalone, strict, style, tags, and library, and combined again. We'll figure out a better name for this when we go in and do the tags, but for now we'll do it library and combined. And we can see that it's going to create libs wizard. Inside of the source, it's going to create our wizard component, and that's great. So we'll go ahead and generate this. And there we go. We've generated our wizard component, so we can shut all of this down. And inside of our libs, here's our wizard. So let's go and commit this. So with our app component, this is a whole bunch of styling stuff that we did. And in our app component.ts, some more styling and some more styling. That's us adding typography. Do that one, and then wizard, we're going to leave it alone. Package.json, that's us adding typography. So we'll do that here in a little bit, and then tsconfig base, that's the wizard stuff. So here, fix or create grid layout styles. Great. And then here we are adding typography. So boom and boom. Adding at tailwind/typography. So there we go. We push that. And then this is just us adding the wizard component. Adding wizard component. So there we go. Our wizard component, we could do it a couple of different ways. We could use the routes to go there. And so we could have child routes. But for right now, let's just go in and in our routes here, we can say that we want to add path wizard, and we're going to load our component. Modular state wizard. Yep, and that's our wizard component. And there we go. And so to get there, we also need to add to our app component another router link. So a router link wizard. So there we go. And so now we can see that, hey, we've got our wizard component in here. The other thing that this points out to us is that we need to make sure that we've got a min height on our content area. We can just say, hey, we want this to be min height of 100% also. And that didn't pick it up. Let's refresh this. Isn't that one working? Do I need to add a height of 100%? A min height of 0? I thought that adding the min height would make my content area fill this. Oh, I know what the problem is. I don't need the min height or the height here. The problem is the app root here. We've got a max height of full, but we don't have a min height of full. Min dash height 100%, and boom. So now, we've got our content properly done. So I need to go to my app components, and in my host, I think we can just do height full. I don't think we need to do like a min and a max. So yeah, now if we look, so the height is what I don't. Max width full, height full. I think we need a max height. I'm fairly certain we do. So if I go back to the home route, wait, where did my? There's something going on here with okay. I don't know. I don't know where my bars went, but one other thing to look at is in the left nav, we want these to be display block also, because we want them to be on their own line. So now we can jump to the wizard and back. So let's get a wizard in place, right? Let's go to our wizard component. So wizard component, and I just need to be cognizant of the time. So the right now it's just wizard works. This is going to also have this will have a host, and we're going to give it a class of grid, and yeah, we'll say it's got a height of full and a width of, or a height of full and a width of full. And we want, so like grid content areas, and we can go back to our grid generator. And so what we really want is like a button area at the bottom. So something like that is fine. But we want an implicit grid. Does that work? So one fraction. Grid template rows, 1 fraction 5 EM. Grid auto rows is 1 fraction. And that's, we want 1 fraction. So we can do, oh, that's why. We don't want grid template, and we don't want these. So we got our columns of 1 fraction and our grid auto rows. No, that's not what we want. We want 1 column and we want 2 rows. And this is really all we want. We don't need the grid template areas. We can just grab this stuff here. And I actually think that if we go to Tailwind, so Tailwind CSS, and if we look for grid template rows, and that's fine. So there's ways to make it so that the grid template rows because what I don't want is the repeat. There's all the flex. You know what, it's probably just going to be easier to do my display grid, my height full, my width full, and then come into the CSS and just do host grid template columns is 1 fraction, and then grid template rows is 1 fraction, and then we can do I think it was 5 EM. And I think if we go take a look now, we'll see in our modular state, if we inspect here, we should see our grid. There's our router outlet. Here we go. So our wizard should have a grid on it. Mod state wizard component. So it's got a class of grid and a height of full. So it should at least have the display of grid on it. So are we seeing that? We're not seeing that. So did I do something wrong? Is it not compiling? It is compiling. Let's try refresh. Go home, go back, inspect this. So here's our content, our router outlet, our mod state wizard here does not have my grid class on it. And it does not have my height and width of full. And the reason it doesn't, no, display grid is the same as display block. My CSS, we're here. Mod state wizard. Oh. These were added. But what it didn't add, for whatever reason, was the CSS from the host selector. Let's try shutting this down really quick. So there we go, we rebuilt. So now if I go refresh and look at the wizard, we inspect this. Mod state wizard, still not getting the class, even though we can see that the host itself had this stuff added. So on the host, we added the class binding. On the app component, host class binding. So we're not getting any of this. It's like Tailwind isn't processing this file for whatever reason. Let's just do div here. And then we can do another div here. And we can do button. We can do type equals button. Yeah. And then we can do button. And type equals button. Yep. So there we go. And this should be, we don't, well, we'll show back buttons when we need it. But this can be button accent. And so now if we go take a look, there's our buttons, right? And if we inspect here, that's so weird that as soon as I added that, so it must not recognize that the change to the host binding caused the necessity for that. But one thing we can do is we can add our class equals flex, and then gap to place items center, and justify or reverse. It's the flex row reverse, I think, is what we want, because I want them to go backwards. Yeah, so there we go. There's our next and our back buttons, and they're down on the bottom where they should be. And so now we're ready to figure out how things should behave, right? And so the very first thing we want to do is add a little bit of state here. Hey, Jesus, you guys use class name or class? What do you talk like? What do you mean, Jesus? Class name or class? Are you talking here in the host binding? Or are you talking in the actual, oh, it's a React thing. So in the host binding here, it's class, and we can add classes to the host, and we use class here in our templates, but there are ways to bind to the class. So we can't bind to class like this because that's a reserved word. So Angular gives us the ability to bind to like an ng class, which would allow us to set classes right dynamically through, whatever. We can also do class name and bind to the class name of the class, or we can do. I've never used class list. I've always used ng class or class name. So hopefully that answers your question. But anyway. One thing I would like to do is make that back button. Well, I'll worry about that later. Let's get this figured out, right? We need some state because the next and the back button are going to control where we are. And so what we could do is we can do an at switch statement here. And we can switch on store.step, right? And boom, and we don't have our store in place. So let's go add some state to our component. So down here in the wizard, we're gonna add a new folder. We're gonna call this folder our state folder. And in our state folder, we're gonna add a new TypeScript file. And this will be our, we'll call this our, well, we can just call it our wizard.store.ts. Well, wizard.store.ts, yeah. And this is just going to be a signal store that we're going to use. For our wizard store, we need some state. So we're going to say type wizard, we'll call it wizard state equals, and we need a couple of things here. So we need the current step, and current step is either going to be, we'll have it be info, or yeah, we could do info details or confirmation. That's fine, perfectly fine. That's really all we need. So now what we can do is we can say, hey, const, yeah, initial state, and this is a function that returns wizard state. And we're just going to say, hey, the current state is the info step. And then the last thing we need to do is just export our const, and this will be our wizard store. And yes, this will be a signal store. So we need to import our signal store. And let me close this because I think I'm getting some weirdness with, but we want to use with state, and we're just going to say, hey, we want our initial state in here. So let's import that. And then there's one other thing we want to do is with computed. And our with computed, we'll go ahead and import that. And we're going to say that we want our store, and our store will be used to compute our current steps. So we're going to just display back button. It's going to be computed. Yeah, and if our current step is not the info step, then we will display the back button. Boom. And because this is a signal, we need to treat it like a signal. And there we go. And that's it. That's our entire store that we're going to use for the next and back button. Actually, that's not true. We also need with methods. And so we'll bring in the methods also. And this will also bring in a store. So we're going to use a store for this. The other thing I just realized is we also want to display next button. Yeah, if we're not on the confirmation step, we'll have a next button. And then here we can just say we want the next step. Because we're in a wizard, and it's just going to do patch state. And we don't want to do what it's doing right now. So patch state, we're going to patch the store, and we want to get next state, and this is going to be based on store.current step. So down here we can just add our function get next state, and this will take in the current step. And so we're going to introduce a type here, type alias, and this is just call these wizard steps. Boom. And you can see that there's potential here. So to there's potential here to make this, it's going to return a wizard step. Sorry. There's potential here to make this better. More generic is what I'm looking for. Let's go ahead and see what it does. I'm actually fine with this. Details goes to confirmation. Confirmation will not go to info. In fact, we're going to say that the default is if you don't know where to go to info. And this doesn't work because we need a partial object here. So we're going to say current step is going to be get next state. And that's fine. And then the last one is just previous step. We actually don't need this either. We can just do that. Great. And previous step will patch state. And that is not good. We're going to get previous state. And we want the current step. And so the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to add function get previous state. And it's going to take in the current step. And that's of type wizard steps. And it's going to return something of type wizard steps. And we can rename this later. I want to try and get this done here. So boom, info, details. So this is wrong. If it's on confirmation, we go back to details. Details goes back to info, and the default is to just return info. So the default will always be the info state. So there we go. We've now got our state in place. And so in the wizard component, we can now grab our state. So we can do protected read only store equals inject wizard store. We want to inject this here, grab inject from Angular core. We want to grab our store. And the other thing we need to do is add our providers array. And we want to provide a wizard store for our wizard. And that's great. So, and it's not protect, it's protected. There we go. And so now that we've switched on store.step, we can do all of that. What did I break? So there, and there. Boom. So now we've got all of our cases. So on info, we don't want this. Instead, on info, we're going to defer, and we're going to load in our mod state vehicle info. Yep. So now we need to import vehicle info component. No, vehicle info component. There we go. And then we also want our vehicle details component. Vehicle details component. Boom. And here we're also going to just defer loading our vehicle details component. So defer loading our vehicle details. Mod state vehicle details. Boom. And we're good there. And then the last one, yeah, we can leave this as is. And we will instead add just a pre-tag here. And we'll do get state. Well, for right now, we'll leave it as is. No, you know what? We will inject. So protected read only vehicle store equals inject, and here we can do vehicle. We'll do the vehicle info token. It doesn't matter which one we inject; they're going to do the same thing. And so here we can just do get state from vehicle store. Nope, not vehicle store. Vehicle info. Vehicle info store. Did I not? Oh, I just call it vehicle. I call it vehicle store. All right. I'm rushing a little bit because I'm trying to get done. So the last thing we need to do is just wire up these buttons. And so here we're just going to say, hey, click equals next. And this will be click equals back. And hey, Jesus, yeah, no problem. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. No, I'm here to help you guys learn also. So so this .store.next step and back is going to be protected on this .store protected back is going to be this .store.previous step. And then the last thing we want to do is just make sure that we only show these buttons when we need them. And so here we can just do @if store.display next button. Boom. So there we go. And here, this is just @if store.display back button. And now we've added a whole new way to interact with our component. So if we go back here, property step does not exist on type current step. On type current step. Where did I do? Oh, current step is what we need. There we go. And now we can see that, you know, in the home, we can come here and we can make this like, you know, a 2019 Ford Focus Rally Sport Edition, right? And when we change that, we can see down here that it's changed. When we go to our wizard, it's still a 2019 Ford Focus, right? So we're sharing the state, but we've got these components that we can put anywhere. And so right now we can see that, hey, our next button's here. And you know what? Our details are here. We need to do a little bit of work, but you know, now we can step back and forth. And you know, if we turn off our tinted roof, we give it a sunroof, turn off hinted seat, right? And we come back here, our state is syncing up across all the different ways that we can put these pieces together, just because of what we did last time. And our state isn't tied to this specific, you know, this specific store. We could put this store together any way we wanted. And so, you know, when we get here and we go to our next, we can see, oh, it's object. Yeah, that makes sense because we need to run this through our JSON pipe. And so now when we go back, the downside to what we're doing here with our wizard is that because we're not using the router, you know, if we refresh the page or we change our route, it always goes back to the beginning. So there's some work that we can do to make this better. But notice, you know, our confirmation page looks good. Our, you know, we can change stuff here and make this, you know, like a hybrid maybe. And when we come down here and we hit next, we can see that we're a hybrid, and you know, we're going true, false, right? True, false. If we go to our home component, again, true, false, and it's a hybrid. But, you know, we were able to throw it together. And like the amount of time it took for us to turn what we have here into a wizard was most of it was spent building the store that does this navigation, right? Like the actual piece of combining these now that they're built is really just this, right? This switch state. And that's it. And because we're deferring these and lazy loading them, then our bundle sizes are going to get better. And we're handling our next and our back stuff. And really, I didn't even have to add these handlers down here. I do it out of habit. But really, we could have just put store.next step here, or previous step here, store.next step here. And it would have worked out how we wanted. I'm actually really happy that we finished this up. I'm going to call it here. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody for asking questions. Thank you guys for showing up. Join us tomorrow for TinyConf. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people talking about Angular. I'm one of the hosts. I'm also speaking. So I'm looking forward to that. And other than that, we will see you guys when I get back from Australia. Yeah. And probably the Monday after. I think I'm just going to call it and say it'll be a week from next Monday when I'll be back to streaming. But we're going to pick up where we are here and take a look at different ways to build components now that we have these modular blocks that we can put together, and we can build modular state using the tools that we've got in place. So yeah, you guys have a great